Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us today for today's webinar. My name is Tommy Marks. I'm the Director of the Minority Business Development Agency's Federal Procurement Center. We're going to give everyone a few minutes to join, and we will start the webinar shortly. Yes, again, welcome. We're going to start shortly. Okay. Welcome again. As stated, my name is Tommy Marks, and I'm the Director of the MBDA's Federal Procurement Center. I will be serving as your webinar host. The Federal Procurement Center is the only MBDA center solely dedicated to helping minority business enterprises gain access to the federal contracting opportunities, capital, key contacts, and market intelligence to successfully compete to win federal contracts. Today, we have two presentations for you. I'm presenting an introductory segment on how to do business with the federal government, and I will be followed by Ms. Darlene Bullock, the Acting Director of the United States Department of Homeland Security, Office of Small and Disadvantaged Business Utilization, who will be representing on opportunities at Homeland Security. So just a little housekeeping before we get started. The entire webinar is scheduled to run for 1 hour. We have two presentations, and we will have a brief question and answer session after each presentation. Because there are so many attendees online, we ask that you type your questions as it comes to you during the presentation in your GoToWebinar control panel. If possible, we will respond to the questions during the presentation. If not, we will try to cover them during the question and answer section. Please note, if we are unable to cover your questions during the allotted time, we will follow up over the next couple of days with a response. So our planned agenda today is as follows. Presentation number 1 is how to do business with the federal government, followed by a question and answer session. That will then be followed by Ms. Bullock's opportunities at Homeland Security, and she will also host question and answers. And then we will wrap up and talk about what the next steps are. So, how to do business with the federal government. So I know that silence is killing you, but I'm just holding you at bay.
Yeah.
The two presenters, you just seen them. So first step on how to do business with the federal government is really to determine what size, what you want to sell, and what the size of your business will be. You can take away from this slide to go to the North American Industry Classification System, better known as the NAICS, in order to determine what it is that you want to sell to the federal government. And to determine your size, you've got to work with the SBA, and you can see the websites for your convenience where you need to go. I know we got a mixed audience. We got mature companies out there, and we got companies that are just starting to try to get into the federal government. So in order to do business with the federal government, you must be registered in the Systems of Award Management, called better known as SAMs. And once you register in there, to initiate that registration, you need a Data Universal Number System, the DUNS, which are all free, of course, that you apply for at those websites in order to get registered in the SAMs. Once you're officially registered in the SAMs, then you can do business with the federal government. You want to identify which agencies you want your products and services from. What you have to do is really review the selected agency's websites. You can also review the Federal Procurement Data System, and that website is up on the slide. And then you want to sell locally. What do I mean by that? You want to get to know the agency, small business specialists who can help you navigate agency requirements. You want to identify the procurement opportunities. And one of the best places to start with that is at the Federal Business Opportunity website. And then you want to monitor those opportunities on a daily basis. Step 5, you want to become familiar with the contracting regulations and procedures. I mean, everybody out there is kind of afraid of the federal government, but the Federal Acquisition Regulations is what all federal agencies go by. But you also, if you want to do business with the Department of Defense, you've got to know and understand the Defense Federal Acquisition Regulation supplements. And most agencies do have a supplement to the Federal Acquisition Regulations that you must be familiar with. And the small business specialists, professionals there can help you with that. You want to utilize the agency small business programs. So congressionally mandated by Congress, small businesses, we must look at them across at least the 4 socioeconomic categories: services able veterans, hub zone, small disadvantaged, and that's where your 8A businesses lie, and woman-owned businesses. Be prepared to sell. What do we mean? You must be versed in your company's capabilities when you come to the table. You must be prepared to give your elevator speech, and that's not a bio that's 10 pages long, based on what you're dealing with. And last but not least, probably most important, is know the agency's mission. Far too many times we come to the table. I myself started a business, and you come in and you don't know that the requirements of that agency, the agency's mission. So you need to really learn that. An area sometimes people don't think about, but you be familiar with the simplified acquisition procedures. Any requirement $150,000 and below is set aside for small businesses. And that's a lot of dollars when you consider across the federal government that takes place. And then most acquisitions below $3,000 can be paid by the government purchase card. And you set your business up to accept that. Here's some places to seek additional assistance in the marketplace. Obviously, the Small Business Administration, especially if you're a startup. And all four of these agencies, you can go to, the services are free or at minimum cost. I know that you get folks, especially if you're preparing your 8A status, that want to help you out and charge you a nice little fee. But you can work with the SBA and also the Procurement Technical Assistance Centers, and they can help you out with that. Pursue subcontracting opportunities. And there's a plethora of dollars in subcontracting. In fact, any government requirement that's over $700,000, and that's include for the 5-year contract, that would be the base in the 4 option years. If it adds to 700,000, that contractor must have a subcontracting plan that spells out how they're going to work with small businesses. You want to investigate the federal supply schedules at GSA. And one of the key things that is, as policies have changed and they're trying to reduce the number of contracts in the federal system. And Ms. Bullock's going to talk to that about category management and strategic sourcing. That is, the way the government is going. You've got to understand that. And GSA is actually a key agency that has a number of those best-in-class contracts associated with category management. So if you have any questions, you will get all these slides will be available on our website when we're done. If you have any questions, write them in the chat, and we will open the floor for some Q&A. Ma'am, what you can do, the number of merchants you can use, I can't tell you specifically what merchants to go to, but you can do that research. So the question is, do I have a recommendation on how to identify teaming up at 7? And I'm
Slide 7. I think that's what you're talking about.
So if we're talking about slide 7, teaming arrangements, clearly are important. And one of the things we talk to folks about is getting to know, making connections with companies that are in your space. And you're looking at the same types of things in order to be able to partner and team. Because clearly, one of the things we find when you answer a social assault, a lot of times a company cannot do everything that the government is asking, but if you team with someone in your space, that can take place. So the question is, what website specializes in subcontracting opportunities? The SBA actually has on their website a link to subcontracting opportunities, which would be sba.gov. So that would be so question. This would be the last question. Does the MBDA have early access to a set-aside contract, if I'm reading that correctly? The answer to that is no. MBA does not have any early access to set-asides. Set-asides are determined actually by the agency based on their market research. And what's important about that market research is that when you get a source of sort or an RFI, you want to participate and answer those questions, because contracting officers make their determination based on the responses they get back. So if they can identify that they have, for example, 2 or more companies, let's say if it's set aside for woman-owned business, they can do that, then the potential for that to be set aside is there. All the slides that you see today will be available at the end. They will be on the Federal Procurement Center's website, which is www.mbdafpc.com. So at this time, I'd like to introduce again Ms. Darlene Bullock, Acting Director of the Department of Homeland Security's Office of Small and Disadvantaged Utilization.
This is different for you. Your army is different.
Yeah, so I got tongue-tied because in Department of Defense and Army, we're just directors of small business programs.
Right, yeah, it's different, right.
Ms. Bullock.
Oh, I need those, right? And so we're ready for the video. Is it muted or unmuted?
You're unmuted.
Oh, okay, I'm unmuted. Hello, everyone. I just want to thank MBDA for having me today to present about, how Homeland Security buys, what do we buy, our small business program, et cetera. So I'm really informal. So, we're going to ask questions at the end. So I kind of like more of a conversation, but this is going to be a presentation. So yes, you have to listen to every word that I actually say. It might be homework later, I don't know. But what I want to do first of all is show you a video, DHS Unity video. And with this video, it's a few minutes, about 3 or 4 minutes. What it shows is the missions of DHS. These people could be your neighbors, they could be you. It shows how we protect the homeland, the dedication of these individuals. So the DHS mission is with honor and integrity, we will safeguard the American people, our homeland, and our values. And the overall vision is to ensure a homeland is safe, secure, and resilient against terrorism and other hazards. And so we pride ourselves on being able to do that every day. So right now, we'd like to show the video. So just give us a second, I'll be back in just a minute.
ICE enforcement and removal operations arrested 331 criminal aliens and immigration violators.
HSI arrested more than 1,200 from gangs across the U.S.
1,000 child victims were identified and rescued, with Homeland Security investigations agents arresting nearly 3,000 child predators.
2 weeks since historic flooding left thousands of Houstonians underwater, FEMA has opened 4 disaster recovery centers in the hardest hit areas.
The U.S. Coast Guard came through with flying colors, rescuing 33,000 people.
To disrupt terrorist attacks, to make our borders more secure, respond to natural disasters, and make our immigration system more effective and fair. Now, addressing any one of these challenges is a tall order. Addressing all of them at once is a monumental task. But that's what the dedicated men and women of the Department of Homeland Security do every day.
They're pulling up the slides now, so I hope everyone enjoyed that video. I think every time I watch that video, I get a little chill sometimes, because a lot of things that Homeland does is nobody knows it's happening. So we all know we've been safe today, we were safe yesterday, and so it takes the efforts of the department and an organized group to ensure that that happens. Now, one thing I do want to say is, even though DHS has changes in different parts of our organization, our secretary recently resigned, and we have an acting secretary that will be taking place. The functions that you just saw in that video always operate. The men and women of Homeland Security ensure that, and small businesses, companies, large businesses, companies who contract with, ensure that those activities take place. So you don't want anyone to think that because we don't have permanent leadership that anything's, that any of those things that we are designed to do won't occur. So the slides up there? Okay. Okay, so we're just having some network issues. Oh, they can see it on that. Okay, I'm sorry. You know, this is live. You know what happens when things are live, right? So first, we talked about the mission. And you know what? I don't want it to feel like it's daunting, because you look at that video and go, oh, wow, look, the small businesses don't know to provide those kind of services and protect the country. Yes, they do every day. So I don't want people to think that, oh, you know, it just looks like that's just too much work. Are they contracts for us? They definitely are. Oh, the next slide. Okay. So just give us 1 second. Okay, you can go to the next slide, because this one won't move. I'm sorry. Well, it's okay to move from here. So everyone can hear me, right? Okay, so the next slide is, it just won't show up there. This is live, y'all. You know what happens. So the information is good, but you know, we're working to get it so that you can see it. So just a little bit about Homeland Security. Let me go, how do I go back? I'm not going forward or back. Back is here. Okay, I got it. Okay, so this slide is a slide about the DHS procurement organization, the structure. So nothing you have to memorize. It's information is readily available. Just want you to see our Chief Procurement Officer. Her name is Soraya Correa. She's been a head of contracting activity at several different organizations, components within DHS. DHS has several buying components. We actually have 10. USCIS, as of November 1st, is its own buying activity. Their procurements originally, since DHS was created, were out of the Office of Procurement Operations, which is here. So USCIS is now broken out as its own organization with its own goals, own small business goals, etc. Okay. So you see here is the OSDBU office. You see the dotted line says Chief Procurement Officer. The OSDBU position is actually reports to the Deputy Secretary of Homeland Security. For purposes of administrative function is the dotted line to the Chief Procurement Officer. I guess everyone can hear, right? Is this where they couldn't hear before? Okay. This is a little overview of DHS, how many operational components, 2 directorates, 13 headquarters offices. This information is, again, our missions. A lot of our components have several missions. For example, Coast Guard has many missions, from drug interdiction to ice breaking, et cetera. So like Tommy mentioned before, looking to see which organization or agency or component, which DHS has components, that interest you, where you think you can sell your goods. You know, the information is readily available. Now, what does DHS buy? In fiscal year 18, 19, we don't have that data yet because, you know, the fiscal year just ended. But this is the final fiscal year 2018 contract spending information. DHS spends most of their money in program management and IT. That's what most agencies do, yeah, across the federal government. So IT, telecom, we spent about $4.28 billion. Professional services, about $5.1 billion. So that's where the major spend is, and that carries over to each one of the components. We do a lot of facilities and construction also. Now, each component of DHS, each buying activity rather, this is how this is set up. So this gives you an idea, and the slides will be available, of how much does each one of those organizations spend. This may, you know, along with what it is that they're buying. And this may help you with, okay, what component interests me? You know, FLETC, Federal Law Enforcement Training Center, is probably our smallest spend. And the Office of Procurement Operations is the largest spend. But out of that office are your S&T, Science and Technology, Federal Protective Services, et cetera. So they have several, they support the Office of the Secretary of Homeland Security. So, you know, the different, you just have to see where you would fit in. You know, if you are a security guard company, you wouldn't necessarily fit in at, let's say, FEMA, right? They don't normally buy guard services. So you'd have to figure out which other component. It could be many of the other ones, from some of the law enforcement components to, you know, Office of Procurement Operations. Again, CBP and Coast Guard, you can see some of the big spend items there and the amount of spend. Now, the spend amount, you see the caveat on that is that that's not just contracts. So that's interagency agreements, other transactions, and other agreements and procurements. FEMA, TSA, United States Secret Service, FLETC. So you see FLETC, guard services, lodging and travel. They do a lot of construction of the training facilities. That's where the federal law enforcement officers go for trainings. FLETC. Secret Service has several different missions. You know, it's not just protecting the president. Secret Service is, one of their duties is to maintain and oversee the financial structure of the United States. So you just have to know what it is that these specific components, I'll just use components for DHS, what it is that they actually do. Now, how does DHS buy? A bunch of different ways. So we use, I'll talk about strategic sourcing probably a little later in the category management slide. But we use government-wide contracts. We use multiple agency contracts. We use almost everything to ensure that the mission is accomplished. Now, doing that, do we ensure that those vehicles have small business small business either set-asides or opportunities, or they're all set aside for small business, or they're, there can be functional categories, et cetera? Yes. I'll give you an example. For instance, let's say, I know everyone here has probably heard of, say, OASIS. And they can get mad at me and talk about it, but I talk about it everywhere. OASIS, for example, is one of these best-in-class contracts, and I'll talk about that for program management services, right? However, OASIS, I know they do to ramp on new companies, but originally they had 3 hub zone companies. Now, how do you expect the entire federal government to utilize 3 hub zone companies for OASIS and there not be at capacity? I don't know how that would happen. So we have to make choices where we go, oh, well, we won't use that vehicle because it doesn't fit our needs. We may choose to do our own. We may try to find another vehicle that we'll use for mission requirements. We accept unsolicited proposals. There's the website to provide your unsolicited proposal. Now, unsolicited proposals are don't send in something about I invented Nike. No, you didn't. It has to be something that's original, that you've created. Something that you've made a product better or something like that. Just saying I invented sneakers, that's not an unsolicited proposal, and we'll send it back to you with the feedback to say we don't feel that that's what what you sent does not make up an unsolicited proposal. We use the GSA schedules, all of them. IT 70 schedule, we buy off open market. Tommy talked about FedBizOps, FBO.gov. DHS has other transaction authority. And you may not be able to see that, but if you go to that link, it talks about the Silicon Valley Innovation Program. And DHS has a science and technology, you have a research and development program. And the other transaction authority in Silicon Valley is where we're trying to get companies that don't normally do business with the federal government, have different ideas. Someone may be creating something in Silicon Valley is not just Silicon Valley, but you could be creating something in your garage. It's such a great idea, but you've never done business with the government. So we're trying to figure out how can we get this idea to market or to for use by the market and by Homeland. So if you go to that link, it has a lot of good information about the Silicon Valley program. Next slide. And another thing, DHS, we issue a lot of department-wide contracts, and I'll talk about that along with strategic sourcing. Okay, where should vendors go? Okay, DHS has probably, I will say, one of the best forecast systems in the federal government. So all requirements, well, mostly, we try to make sure everything is captured. Over $250,000 are captured in our APFS system. So it's our acquisition planning forecast system. And here's the website for APFS. You can go in and you can register your NAICS code. You can register to get emails based on your NAICS code for things that are posted, or requirements that are potential requirements. I have to say that are posted, and it'll send you an email about those requirements. You can download it in Excel. You can chop it up any way you want to make sure that you get the information. Now, I will say this: if you go into APFS, we do a print of it, but as soon as you print something, it gets old. It's old the minute it's printed. So this is a live website that we update all the time. So end users have requirements, and you're required to have an APFS system, I'll say, number before the procurement can proceed. So we're trying to find different ways to increase the use of APFS in a different way, meaning I'd like to see, for example, if you're checking this thing, the solicitation's been issued for it. How can I link those two together? You know, so if you go into APFS, you're not calling the point of contact. It'll already tell you that the solicitation was posted on FedBiz Ops, or it's on eBuy, or, you know, however. So we haven't gotten to that point yet, but that's one of the things that I'd like to see that our APFS system could do. FBO, Tommy talked about that too. So we post our open market procurements on FBO, FedBiz Ops, so Federal Business Opportunities. If you are interested in some of our opportunities that are over $25,000 that aren't on one of our strategically sourced vehicles, that aren't on schedule, this is another way to check, okay? And this also, you can register and get updates just on Homeland, on certain next codes of Homeland. There's different ways to make sure you get the information. RFIs, broad agency announcements. These are ways that we try to get the information out that we have, you know, we have a requirement or something's coming, or hey, get ready to compete. We talked about RFI, right? We can, and I'll tell you this, we can, I used to be a contracting officer for a long time too. And so if you, as a company, small business, do not tell your neighbor, someone you're competing against, that an RFI is out for, you know, whatever requirement, you know, paper clips, right? And that's your top paper clip competitor. I can't set, if you're the only one that responds and, you know, the requiring activity comes back to me and says, oh, we only got one response from small business. Well, yeah, I know it's 30 of you all out there that do these things. You have to kind of tell your, you know, the person you're in competition with, because the rule of two has to be met for us to even first think about the set aside. And then even when you send it in, you know, if the company, your information has to be as much detailed information as the RFI or source of sought request, so they can make a determination that you may be even qualified. So, you know, it's different hurdles we have to get over. But the first thing I tell everyone is make sure you tell whoever you're competing against, hey, look, we're trying to get this as a set aside. So the broad agency announcements are more, I deal with R&D, and they come out with solicitations once a year. I believe it's once a year. They talk about different topics. They come up with the topics about what ideas they want to, you know, try to fund for that year. We do a lot of draft RFPs. You may see, okay, oh, I thought this was, I see you all are buying XYZ. You may see a draft RFP issue because one, we may not, we kind of know what we want, maybe not. Industry may know better, can give us feedback. And so we'll go back and revise any RFPs, you know, to include what we think is appropriate, but also to make sure that we're really capturing what is being done in the marketplace. So we talked about sources sought, RFQs, et cetera, similar to when RFPs issued. Now, how do you know what DHS is buying? You know, you have to go check some of our budget information just to make sure, you know, we have certain line items for certain things. You may see we have a line item to buy, you know, a national security cutter. That would be out of the Coast Guard, and that information would be in. There may be a line item to, you know, there may be some nuclear detection equipment that has to be purchased. You can see that. Tommy talked about the System for Award Management, SAM. So SAM is going through some changes as well as the DUNS number. I know they're trying to creating a brand new number that's not even the DUNS number. So make sure you're aware of those changes. GSA is spearheading that, and you know, so you don't have to go to all these disparate systems. You can go to one, and you know, it'll take one sign in, etc. Key programs. Now, DHS, we create opportunities for small business. And no, I don't know if everyone in this meeting is familiar with this Small Business Administration scorecard. Now, what that scorecard does, it gives agencies and the public an idea of how agencies are doing on their small business achievement. So for DHS, DHS is the largest federal agency to achieve an A or A+ 10 years in a row on the scorecard. The last 3 years, we received an A+, 3 A+ in a row. For fiscal year 19, we expect to have another A. We don't know if it will be an A+. And in the slide in a few minutes, I'll show you some of our accomplishments through 18, our final numbers, and what is showing right now for fiscal year 19. In the fiscal year 2018, we awarded 34.5% of our total contracting dollars to small business. Sorry, I'm working this thing. Go back. The statutory goal for the federal government is 23%, so we exceeded that amount. And you know, a lot of people say, "Oh, are you sure I can get contracts with DHS, or is it just a certain group that can get contracts?" We contract with everyone across the country. We have contracts in every state. You know, in the fiscal year 18 data, I don't have the 19 data yet, but I will have that soon. 11,700 companies received DHS contracts in fiscal year 2018. 39 were large, 7,800 were small businesses. Okay, so don't be discouraged about being able to work with DHS. So 67% of our vendors are small businesses. And just for, I think, a data point, I think 80% or something like that of companies under GSA schedule are small businesses. So it's not just large companies who agencies like DHS contract with. Majority are small. And of the small business contracts awarded, 1,500 or 13% were first-time DHS contract holders. So, you know, that we want to say it is possible. Sometimes it gets daunting. We understand that. This, you know, you have an agency spending $18 billion. I can only imagine. I used to work for DOD too, but not in the capacity, in the small business capacity. So I can understand. I can appreciate even, what is DOD, like $400 billion a year, something like that. I mean, in all the different offices, it can 760 billion is intimidating. So, but offices like mine are here to help you all try to get through a lot of that. This next slide is the 2018 final small business goal achievement. Just to go through this quickly, this is where we received an A+ on the scorecard. We awarded 36% almost to small businesses, 7.6% to women-owned. And you can see Hub Zone. DHS is probably one of maybe 12 agencies out of 24 that had probably achieved over 3%. 3% is the statutory goal for Hub Zone. DHS has achieved that, met or exceeded the Hub Zone goal for the last 10 years. And that the federal government never makes the Hub Zone. It's one of those areas that are hard to achieve. And you know, they're making some changes to the Hub Zone program to try to, you know, assist with that. But this is the preliminary data for fiscal year 19 for DHS. Right now, it's, and it may go up, we're 35.74% in small business prime awards. Our goal was 33%. So we awarded about $6.4 billion to small businesses in fiscal year 19. This is preliminary data. It does change because, you know, there are changes. The FPDS system has not been locked yet. We don't think it'll go down, but it'll probably go up. That will be the second highest achievement ever in DHS history. If the women-owned stands at 8.3, that will be the highest we've ever achieved in women-owned prime, small business prime awards. You can see the other amount. So the total spend for DHS fiscal year 19 was about $18.3 billion. And again, we met the Hub Zone goal, exceeded the Hub Zone goal. So $736 million to Hub Zone. Service disabled, of $1 billion. Key resources for small business, you know, we have, for my office, we have our DHS mailbox. If you have any questions about DHS program, a small business program, or anything, you know, it's a solicitation that you don't really like, or you think it has some issues, or you're trying to get in touch with some office, etc. You can contact our office and we'll try to facilitate that. The DHS has vendor outreach sessions. So we have every month, except for April and September of each calendar year, we do vendor outreach sessions, and that information is on our website here. And so they're 15-minute appointments, prearranged appointments. We use a scheduling system designed for us where we have, you can meet with one of the components or one of our large subcontractors. It gives you, sometimes you can talk about certain requirements, et cetera, but, it just, it's like, we call it speed dating, but it's not really a date, so don't get too happy. It's just a conversation with a small business specialist, okay? And so it's good for them to see your face, right? You like to make FaceTime with people, and so they know who you are. And they fill up really quickly. I mean, this has been one of the great things we've done, and also one of the criticisms is that, registration starts at 12 o'clock. Well, at 12:05, the appointments are gone. So I'm really trying to figure out maybe having more of these sessions. We've been doing it once a month, maybe doing virtual VOS. So I'm kind of trying to think through what's best to expand it, because so many people are interested in hearing and speaking with Homeland Security. Post-award teaming opportunities. Question was asked about subcontracting. DHS has a list of their prime contractors on the website, and so there are areas for subcontracting there. You can go and contact some of those prime contractors. We have contact information, and you can ask them, you reach out to them and say, oh, what kind of contracts do you have with DHS? How can I be of help? I have this certain niche I think would be great, and that would be a relationship that you and that prime contractor will cultivate. Strategic sourcing website. If you go on our strategic sourcing website, you can see all of the DHS strategically sourced contracts that have been awarded. And you can see the company's information, and that's also a way for you to reach out to say to those specific companies, I'd like to be a part of your subcontracting team. We don't, for certain procurements, we used to not have teaming on the fly, we would call it, but now, it is possible to team on the fly in certain, under certain procurements. Again, Fed BizOps, there's a tab at the top that said if you're interested in this opportunity, you can put your information in. I don't know if it says that or subcontracting, I'd have to go to it. But it's where you can go and put your information in, you're interested as a company, and other companies can kind of find you and know that you're also interested in this particular opportunity. DHS, this is about the SBA All Small MentorProtege program. Just make yourself familiar with this. This program was started a few years ago, maybe the last 2 years ago, All Small MentorProtege program. And so it used to be just the 8A MentorProtege. Now they've expanded to all socioeconomic categories. So I know we're running out of time, but just make sure that this is another tool in the toolbox to be able to, go after certain set-asides, but as a team with maybe a larger company or different companies that are similarly situated as yourself. DHS has a MentorProtege program. Okay, they're flashing the lights on me, so in a minute, I'm trying to go through some of these slides, but they'll be available. And so our MentorProtege program, the overall is that you can be any size company to be a protege, but the mentor has to be large. We don't have a joint venture feature like SBA, but the gist of it is that the small businesses, this is another area of subcontracting opportunities. For the mentor, if you're in the MentorProtege program, it allows for more evaluation points at the time of evaluation if you're in a MentorProtege program. Now, category management and strategic sourcing. So I just want to give a little bit about category management and strategic sourcing. So I don't know, you can't do a show of hands, but hopefully everyone is familiar with what category management is. We often say category management is like strategic sourcing on steroids, and it kind of is a little bit, because what's happened is category management is part of the president's management agenda. And this category management did not start in this administration. It started under former administration. And the point of category management is to ensure that we are buying smarter, right? And like a single enterprise. So we're trying to make sure we get the best price. Pricing information is shared, reduces redundancies. It's supposed to make us more efficient, et cetera. And so along with category management, we also have a subset of that is spend under management. I think I have that under another slide. So strategic sourcing and category management are similar. It's just category management is the federal approach. Strategic sourcing, DHS has a strategic sourcing program office, where we have a pointed approach to, and we've been doing it for years, strategic sourcing. Many of you may have heard of Eagle 2, you may have heard of PAX. Those are some of our strategically sourced vehicles that are available for use by all of DHS. And we were we were incorporating these principles of buying smarter and like a single enterprise a long time ago. Now, I added this slide. I'm sorry, it may be a little truncated, but this just gives you a little information about, you hear about category management, you hear about best in class, spend under management, you hear all these terms, right? But what you do need to know is that one thing you need to read is the OMB Directive M-19-13, which was issued in March. That gives more information about the category management program, the agency requirements, the OSDBU involvement, etc. So best in class BIC, Tommy's talked about it for a second, but best in class contracts is where, they're steering us to buy smarter, buy faster, buy as one group. Now, how do they become best in class? Everyone asked that question. But there are key criteria that have been developed by OMB that, certain contracts are vetted. Now, I will say some of them, as the OSDBU, some of that did happen after the fact to me. I mean, some contracts were created, they already were in use. They had good things to them. I won't argue with that. And they were designated as a best-in-class contract. They, some now I think are in the solicitations are indicating that they will possibly be as best-in-class, but to just indicate they are kind of took all of us aback a bit, and we had to change direction a little. Now you also hear the term spend under management. So spend under management is a percentage of an organization's spend that actively uses category management principles. So what you'll hear and what's the big takeaway from this is that every agency has best in class goals and spend under management goals. So all they do is go up. So just understand when I'll give you an example real quick. Say, for instance, there was a program management requirement, right? And it was issued under FBO, open market. Now, we all know that their program management service can be purchased under GSA schedule, right? But somehow that one was done as a full and open under FedBizOps, or even as a set aside under FedBizOps. But the vehicle that was used was the open market way to do the procurement. Now what we're leaning toward is, I don't know if you see these different tiers. Agencies get credit, but we get credit under our spend under management goal by using one of the higher tiers. So a best-in-class solution would be tier 3. That's where the most credit would come. So you may hear that some of the program management, I'll just use that because that's a common spend item. Common spend item is, it may not be recompeted as a FedBizOps. It may be recompeted under a best-in-class solution or under GSA schedule. Okay, so you can see how the tiers, they never want you to be at tier 0 for common spend items like IT for, but you have to, missions first though. So if the mission makes you have to do that, then that would be what happens. However, I just want you all to be aware when you're talking to your contracting people, and you may want to understand, well, how come this contract is not being solicited the way it was last time? They're different, they're competing requirements than it was before. You have, the agency had different goals that it has to meet, and spend under management and BIC are 2 of those goals. Okay, so. Also, we have the competing requirement of the small business being able to, achieve our small business goals. So some of that we can do using these current contracts, some we cannot. So DHS has approaches that one size does not fit all. Just because it's a BIC, we may not use it if it doesn't fit our needs. But we are mindful that we have goals in best in class and under spend under management. Okay? Now, some people say, well, what are those 10 categories? You get to see. These are the 10 categories that are considered common spend by the federal government. This is from GSA's website, Acquisition Gateway. So these are the areas where there are best-in-class contracts, and these are the areas that are determined to be common spend. Now, we buy a whole lot of different other things than this, right? But these are the 10 areas that every government agency buys. That, you know, the thought is that we could buy it better and buy it as one entity. Now, this gives you some of those best-in-class contracts as of September of last year. So some of the IT Schedule 70 vehicles under IT 70, professional services category, we talked about, like Smart Pay. I mean, that doesn't affect you, but it affects, you know, federal purchase cardholder programs. So we have to use that if we're going to use have a purchase card program. OASIS, you see OASIS small, those are all best-in-class contracts. And these also may be areas too to look at for subcontracting. You know, these companies already have the contracts. Now they do ramp-ons, but you know, if some companies who may not be able to continue because they may have they can't recertify because of size issues. But it is a way to go and say, okay, these are companies that are best in class. One, the government has to use some of them if it fits the mission. Let me go and see if I can be, you know, of assistance or be some kind of subcontractor to one of these firms. More of IT category, Army Chest, NASA Soup, NITAC. There are some mandatory ones. Again, they may not affect you. 8A stars, DHS has adopted all of these vehicles. Not all. We haven't adopted NASA Soup because we're doing our own First Source 3. That has been announced in FedBiz Ops. So First Source 3 is our IT products and value-added services strategically awarded contract. So we are doing a First Source 3. So we could say, this is another good example. Oh, we're going to use NASA Soup. Well, NASA Soup doesn't fit DHS's need. NASA Soup, for example, is a great contract, great program office. They don't have some of the set-aside programs that First Source 2 and First Source 1 had. We have all of the socioeconomic categories represented under First Source 1 and 2. Alliant, again, these are all the bigs. Yeah, government rental car programs, some of them don't affect. HCATs, you might have are familiar with HCATs. The office supply contract, those are best in class vehicles. Body armor, DHS is the category manager for the security and protection. Right, so TACCOM 2, the body armor 2, those 3, those are these are DHS awarded contracts. So we have our own they're designated best in class. What drives category management at DHS? These are the elements that I kind of talked about already, to be more efficient, et cetera. Share transactional data. You know, they have all these data information you can find out about how your agency is doing on category management. If you go to acquisition.gov, the gateway, you can find out. Just a slide about strategic sourcing, what the savings that we believe we've achieved, and the spend that's gone through some of our strategically sourced vehicles. I want to bore you with the numbers, but this is websites on what are the things that are in process, like for next fiscal year, this fiscal year 20, that are going to be strategically sourced, and what has already been awarded. So you'll go on there, we have a variety of different contracts that are already be awarded. This is also a good area to look, like I mentioned before, for subcontracting opportunities. And if you have questions about our strategically sourced program office, our strategically sourced program, here is their mailbox where you can send them a question or two. Now, DHS, you know, we pride ourselves in, and our Chief Procurement Officer has these 4 strategic priorities: inspire, motivate, deliver exceptional results, enhance commission capabilities, and probably most important is meaningful communication. So you'll see more of, you've probably seen in the last few years, more communication with industry. We post more information about what we're going to do in FedBiz Ops, more draft RFPs, and then here we have a lot of different industry involved events. For example, the OSDBU is about to do a bunch of learning cafes and webinars in fiscal year 20 on different topics ranging from non-manufacturer rule all the way to, I'm doing a presentation on what does the OSDBU do. I mean, a lot of people have no idea what the Small Business Office does, what we are required to do, what reporters are required to do statutorily, how do these goals get created, et cetera. So and we just had, we're having a reverse industry day on Thursday, and we just had a strategic industry conversation last week. So if you go and you can, you're interested in some DHS events, and I'll tell you that the strategic industry conversation is attended by the Deputy Secretary, the USM. That's a very high level event, and so you'll see the really senior leadership at DHS attend that event, where you can ask questions, interact with them, etc. We have an industry liaison program. The industry liaisons often are also the small business specialists in some components, but they're one of the entry points to talk to, department officials about, upcoming requirements. They do talk to small and large businesses, and here's their mailbox if you have a question for the industry liaison or any upcoming, and they're involved with the previous slide with a lot of the DHS sponsored events. They're always involved with those, so you can ask a question about when is the next one. Can you send me the information about the last one? A lot of times they post the slides on the DHS website. You can inquire about that. DHS has one-on-one meetings. Again, we have industry days. I just talked about all this. The SIC is what we call them, strategic industry conversation. RFIs, again, if you respond, that's the only way we can do set-asides. And we also have an industry government activity calendar, which you can check on where we're speaking, what events we'll be attending, etc. The key takeaways for doing business with DHS, understand the missions, and we talked about that. You can't come to DHS and not know Secret Service is a part of DHS. I've had those meetings. They come in and say, oh, well, I'm going to go talk with, the Coast Guard agency. I said, well, that's part of Homeland, right? And so you got to be prepared. That's the one thing. You have to know what DHS is a little tricky, because even though we're DHS, all these agencies were their own agency before, or under something else like Treasury or et cetera. Like Secret Service used to be part of Treasury, right? FEMA was its standalone. Now they're all together. So it can be confusing, but it's just part of doing business and doing your homework, right? You want a $5 million contract, but you may not know that DHS is part of, Coast Guard is part of Homeland, so it's just ensure that you make sure that you have the information when you come to see any of us. Ensure that your website and capability statement articulate your organization's offerings. I'll tell you, it's great when someone gives you a card and you go to their website, because I do it all the time, and it's not almost website, it's just a domain name or something like that. I mean, if you're ready, you have to be ready. So you have to make sure that you're providing us with the information, and that you're ready to step in as much as you can. When you're an agency like DHS or DOD or et cetera, it is hard, but when you come to us, you have to be ready. So going out to places like PTAX, for example, trying to get more information on how to do business with the government is a great idea. Again, know who you're meeting with and know their roles, so you can explain the relevancy of your offerings. And come to us as a partner. It's not always, you can't, I'd like someone to give me a contract too, probably when I retire. But you can't say, oh, I want a contract, or assume that because you're a certain socioeconomic group, oh, can you do this as a set aside? No, I mean, I can't. That's not the way it works. But you'd have to tell us how you can help us, rather than, give me a contract or give me what I'm due. And that approach doesn't quite work. It helps when you are providing information and telling us how you can help us solve a problem. And then just utilize the resources available to navigate DHS opportunities, like we talked about, the APFS, FedBiz Ops, contacted my office about, you know, what, you know, anything that you've seen here or anything that you've heard through something and you want to, you know, come to an office that's kind of like an intermediary, we can do that. You know, you may not be able to contact the big contracting office or the contracting officer, but we can help you facilitate any of that. Oh, my time's up. Okay, so if there are any questions, let me know, because there probably are, and I don't know if I have time because our time is up. I can take a couple questions. A copy of this deck. Yeah, we'll provide a copy of the of my presentation, and maybe someone's asking about some of the links. They'll probably be able to see them better because it's a certain blue, I think, in the printed, and you'll send it. Can you do it as a PDF? Yeah, so they'll be posted, but yeah. And when someone says, is this only in DC area? I'm not really sure what that means. Again, DHS, we contract with every state, you know, in the United States. So including Puerto Rico and the territory. So we have states all over the country. We don't want you to think you only can get a contract if you're in Washington, DC, Virginia, Maryland. That's not how it's worked. What does team on the fly mean? Team on the fly means usually for larger contracts, the team is established, you know, and they looked at everyone's past performance, etc. Now you find with a lot of IT contracts, there's certain, you know, companies that have niches or requirements that evolve that we didn't think about before. So now teaming on the fly means that, you know, you can actually bring in a team member to accomplish that certain requirement instead of that group being, you know, stagnant. M-19-13, that is the category management memorandum issued by OMB. So go to OMB website and you type that in or go Google, it'll come up. Okay. Let's see. Okay. Are the goals statutory? Yes. Let me explain real quick. The DHS every year, the 24 CFO Act agencies negotiate with SBA their small business prime goal and their subcontracting goal. The statutory goal of 23% is a statutory goal for the entire federal government. Now, do some agencies not even do the 23%? Yes. You have like NASA, Department of Energy. They just cannot meet that statutory goal of 23%. The other goals, service disabled, women owned, et cetera, yes, those are statutory goals. And those goals are then, you know, every agency, they don't get to change those, but they do get to negotiate the prime goal. Okay. So, a lot of questions, but I can't get to them all. I'm sorry, y'all. I mean, maybe if you they compile them, then we can talk about it. But what I would like to say is I appreciate having me here today, and you know I'd love to come do another presentation, but our time is ended. I could probably talk for another hour. I'm sorry. So okay, thank you all so much. I appreciate it. Okay, back to me. Oh, she's an excellent presentation.
Oh, great job. Oh, good job.
Thank you, Ms. Bullock.
Oh, Enrique, I know him. You know Enrique.
Great job.
Great. I'm sorry.
So, you know, time really flies when you're having fun, right? So we want to thank Ms. Bullock for everything that she's provided us today. All of the slides will be available, and we know we've got a ton of questions, so we got a lot of homework, and the intent is for her slides, I will provide her the questions, and then our goal is that her staff working with us will get those responses, and we will post those responses on the website, and that's for both presentations that were given. So again, we appreciate you for joining us today, and just in case you miss anything today, again, we're going to hang this on the website, and don't forget to mark your calendar for the following. December the 3rd, we will have Growing Your Business Through Federal Contracting. January 14th, Staying Relevant to Sustain and Grow. February the 4th, diversify your portfolio, looking at succession and exit strategies. And then that will culminate the webinars. And then on the 26th of February 2020, collaborating with the MBDA's Houston Center, we're going to do a summit in Houston, Texas. Again, thank you, and we'll see you next time.